There are so many different credit cards out there, especially when it comes to travel credit cards, but from our research, a lot of them involve spending a lot of money in order to get those really good perks and points. Now we're gonna explain more about what we mean by that in just a second, but in this video, we really wanted to walk you through our process in researching travel credit cards and also let you know which one we ended up going with. Now before this year, we'd actually never had a travel credit card before. We weren't doing a lot of traveling. It made a lot more sense for us to have cashback credit cards, and that's what we'd focused on. But when we realized that we were doing a lot more traveling this year, especially than even anticipated at the beginning of the year, it just made sense for us to start getting rewarded with points for the spending we were doing anyways.
Now, when it comes to the research process, me and Steph made sure that we were looking into a whole bunch of different cards. And by no means did we look at like an exhaustive list of just every single credit card that's out there on the market. But it was really important for us to make sure that we were hitting at least the main ones. So the ones that you would see on different blogs, or at least ones that are being introduced by different travel influencers. So to kick things off, the American Express Club, as I like to call it, is a really interesting one because you'll find that even amongst your family and your friends, there's a whole bunch of people that are using either the Platinum, the Gold, or even the Cobalt card, just to name a few from their lineup, for a different number of reasons, right? With the vast majority of reasons either rooted in assumptions around the card's benefits or because they were referred to that particular card by someone else. For us, when we were looking for a travel card earlier this year, it was because we knew that we were going to be traveling a lot over the next couple months. So whether it was going to be for work or for the vacation that we had planned. Now, similar to everyone else, we follow and we also get served to us the videos where you have all these people that are talking about credit card hacking, right? They're using a credit card, they're optimizing, they're doing all these different things, and they're getting all these different benefits. Now, what's interesting is that when you're listening to a bunch of these people, sometimes you're even hearing them talk about benefits where they're even getting free flights, or they're getting into some of these lounges, these exclusive lounges that we all hear about. Now, basically, all of this is to say that this was the first time that I had actually thought about getting a credit card specifically for the travel benefits. Now, when we were looking into the American Express cards, we'd had a few friends recommend the Platinum and the Cobalt card specifically, but obviously with me being me, it was really important that I took a deeper look into their 3 featured travel credit cards. So we're talking the Platinum, the Gold, and the Cobalt card. I didn't really bother looking into their co-branded cards. So for example, the Aeroplan and the Marriott card, because on the surface, those cards were, number one, cards that we could get with our banks if we wanted to, and number 2, they just seemed a little bit too specific, especially in the case of the Marriott card, where I would all of a sudden have to start planning my travel around specifically going to Marriott hotels in order to get the most out of that card. It just didn't really make sense to me. I was mainly looking for a card that made sense in terms of having a really great sign-up bonus, at least to kick things off for the first year. Now, when I looked into all the different cards, including the TD Aeroplan Visa Infinite card, what I realized is that we needed to balance our travel for the upcoming year versus our travel moving forward and beyond that. So basically what I mean by this is that when I was doing all of this research, what I ultimately realized was that it's all about how much you spend. So if you're someone who spends a lot normally, like on a day-to-day basis, then you might as well be rewarded for that spend. So you might as well maximize the rewards or benefits that you're getting, whether it's from a cashback dollars perspective or from a travel benefits perspective. The problem though, going back to that whole balancing our travel for the year versus our travel moving forward, was that beyond this year, I knew that we weren't all of a sudden going to become jet setters who all of a sudden would be able to justify spending $800 a year on an AMEX Platinum card. Don't get me wrong, the AMEX Platinum card currently has a 100,000 point sign-up bonus, but the minimum spend is $10,000 in order for you to start reaping some of those points and actually start bringing them in. Now, on top of that, let's say, you do spend a lot in that first year on travel and you do get the points. If you're not planning on continuing that type of spend moving forward, then guess what? You're not really getting the most out of the card's benefits, which, by the way, are mainly travel related. And on top of that, you're still paying the $799 a year or $800 a year for that card. And guess what? They also don't make it easy for you to downgrade your card to one that doesn't have a fee, which, by the way, is what we thought we might do had we gotten some sort of American Express card. So ultimately, what's going to happen is that you might have to either cancel your card, which, by the way, is not good for your credit score, or you might have to go back and forth with American Express, which could ultimately lead to them having you blacklisted from their products, which has happened in the past. So ultimately, this all happens, or is gonna happen, because you wanted a card that didn't really meet your lifestyle or your long-term goals. It's funny because after doing all this research, I actually said to Steph that I understand why people get the Cobalt card specifically. It's funny because they don't have the highest first-year sign-up bonus or any big bonus really at all for the first year, but what they do have is that they really reward you for your spend in the areas that the vast majority of people people, for better and for worse, are more likely to be spending their money. So we're talking about getting 5 times the points on restaurants, 3 times the points on subscriptions, and 2 times the points on travel-related purchases, which, by the way, the 2x on travel-related purchases, that matches exactly what you're gonna get with the Platinum card. So, you know, from a spending perspective, the Cobalt actually isn't that bad. For us, it would actually make a lot of sense to combine the Cobalt card and the TD Aeroplan Visa Infinite card, where the Aeroplan card, that's where you're buying a lot of your flights, and then everything else, you just put that on the Cobalt card. Now, Steph also has a cashback card with Neo Financial that we really love because they give almost as much as 5% cashback on a lot of the restaurants and a lot of the stores that we go to a lot. By the way, the link is in the bio, but yeah, there is a lot for us to think about, at least moving forward from a credit card perspective, and what would be the most optimized way.
Okay, now let's talk a little bit more about the travel credit card that we did end up going with. So this year at the end of March, we ended up opening Aeroplan accounts, which is specifically the rewards point system that goes with Air Canada, which is the airline we normally fly. So we opened that up at the end of March before our first trip of the year. And then we ended up going with the TD Aeroplan Visa Infinite card. I always get that wrong. TD Aeroplan Visa Infinite card at the end of September. So that's the travel credit card that we opened up. The annual fee that we pay is $139. And yeah, that's what we've had for the last few months now to kind of complement the Aeroplan points. Now, so far we've accumulated 92,000 points. That's the types of points that can go towards potentially getting a free flight in the future. Now, the way that we've started to accumulate them is obviously from just putting our flight purchases and getting the points from purchasing flights. But on top of that, we got from the credit card specifically, the 10,000 point welcome bonus. That was after you make your first purchase, you get that. And then once you spend $5,000 on the card, you get an additional 25,000 points. So of the 92,000 points we've accumulated so far, 35,000 of them have come from those welcome and like first threshold bonus points situation. So then on top of the 92,000 points that we have that'll hopefully be accumulating towards a free flight or free flights in the future, there's also $20,000 in SQM points that we have. Now that's their lingo for status qualifying miles. This is something that I feel like a lot of people are interested in when it comes to travel credit cards, because status levels are what get you things like lounge access, potential upgrades. I think the higher your status is, the more likely you are to get different upgrades, right? Upgrade meaning from like basic economy seats to business class, let's say, premium economy, whatever it might be. So far we have 20,000 points that are going towards our status qualifying miles. Literally, that's what it's called. We need 5,000 more to get the first status level. So technically we haven't reached that first status yet. We don't have lounge access yet and all of that, but it should come as we get those additional points. Now, side note really quick, some travel credit cards, you can actually get that access and that status right away by paying a higher fee, right? So some of the cards that we were talking about before that Dennis was mentioning on, you can pay this high fee and get all this status and stuff right away. For us, that's not worth it. We don't want to pay more money to go into these things anyway and then feel like it was a free perk. Now, if we're going to qualify it for it eventually anyway, but the purchases that we would be making, great, but we didn't want to actually bake that into the fee that we were paying. Now, something else that I wanted to mention is how you get these status qualifying miles. I feel like even on our videos this year, even though it's our first time traveling in years, people were commenting on our very first trip video, why didn't you guys like get all this for free from points? And we're like, yeah, but we haven't traveled and accumulated these points yet, right? You actually have to take some time to build up these different points in order to get the free perks. Now, something I really wanted to mention is that the tiers I'm going to be talking about right now are specific to Air Canada flights, but it's going to be similar on different flights too. So when you're picking your seats, even, I guess it's not even really just based on seats, but for the economy section, you can get a basic flight, which means like no refunds, you board last, all of that stuff, but it's cheaper, typically by several $100s or potentially more if it's a more expensive flight. Then there's just the standard tickets, and then you go up to premium economy, business class, first class, all of that. Now for our last 2 flights this year, our last 2 trips, I guess, one for our friend's wedding in Lake Como, one to LA, we decided to go with the basic flights because we were trying to go as low cost as possible on our trip. Now, because we bought those basic tickets, which saved us hundreds of dollars for each flight for each of those trips, so definitely worth it in our books. Something to note is that we didn't earn any status qualifying miles because of that. Now, is any other seat preference that you get, including just the standard ones, you earn some points towards the status qualifying miles, but we didn't get any for going basic. Now, the 20,000 that we did get this year, most of them came from the one time that we flew to Kenya with premium economy seats. Now, we did that because we weren't paying for those flights for ourselves. YouTube flew us out to to Kenya, which was really awesome. We loved that trip. We loved the premium economy seats too, but we normally wouldn't pay that money ourselves. But that is what gets you more miles as well. Kind of like anything else in life, the more you spend, the more points you get, the more you end up getting for free. It's kind of the same here, but I just really wanted to highlight that because I feel like people don't realize a lot of the time that you are spending a lot of money before you get the free perks. So that's the travel credit card that we have right now. Like Dennis said, maybe we'll change up our credit card situation in the future, but we're happy with the setup right now, and we'll keep you guys posted on how it goes for us over the next few months and as we continue to use the credit card especially.
You know, I think that one of the biggest takeaways for us has to be the fact that when it comes to credit cards and credit card churning or credit card hacking, ultimately what it ultimately comes down to is how much you yourself actually spend. So if you're someone who's not planning on spending more money or don't have the ability to spend more money, then it's probably not going to make sense for you to get some of these crazy credit cards that offer these crazy ridiculous fees, right? Because you're not going to have the, number one, you're not going to have the spend to actually get the most points or to get the most benefits, and two, you're not going to be able to utilize the benefits. So yeah, I mean, ultimately, if you guys have any thoughts, if you have any questions, let us know down in the comment box below. If you haven't checked out any of our previous videos, make sure you check them out next door, and let's go.